This episode is proudly supported by Crunch. Running a hospitality business isn't for the faint-hearted. Between ordering stock, scheduling rosters, paying bills, motivating your team, and keeping customers happy, there's a lot on your plate. It's no surprise that business planning often gets put on the back burner. Well, here's something that can help. Introducing Crunch, a new app to help simplify the business side of hospo. With Crunch, you get access to practical, bite-sized education, proven strategies, and a supportive community of hospo owners just like you. When it comes to the Crunch, if you're looking for proven ways to build a successful, sustainable business, Crunch has you covered. Try Crunch now. To get 14 days free, just head to crunchhospo.com.au.
I'd like to acknowledge Australia's First Nation people as the traditional custodians of the land, and for this episode in particular, the Ngurri and the Kaurna people. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging.
Wine is the discovery, and that's it. You're wanting to have a wine that you respect, you like, you can afford, and you can just share the simple experience with it, with great food and friends. And to me, that's what it's all about.
This is Over a Glass. I'm Shanteh Wale. The name of Taylor's is deeply embedded into the minds and hands of Australian wine drinkers. You've most likely bought a bottle, been gifted one, or seen them adorned a dining table somewhere, sometime. Mitchell Taylor is the third-generation winemaker and managing director of the estate, and he joins me today to tell me more. Hi, Mitchell. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, pleasure to be on the podcast.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you here, and to be honest, I know how busy you are. I didn't know if it would be you I'm talking to, but I'm really honoured to have you chatting today.
Oh, no worries. Always got time for a good chat about the wine business and the wine community that we all enjoy.
Well, indeed. Taylor's has an amazing history, and it does go way back. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the rich history and kind of where things started with Bill Taylor Sr.?
Sure, yes. My granddad, Bill Taylor Sr., or Big Bill, as we used to call him as grandkids, he was actually a bigger dairy farmer. He grew up on a dairy. But one good thing that he could do, which I'm very glad he did, was he was a really good rugby player, so he got a scholarship to play rugby for a school. And in that, when he came into the big smoke of Sydney at the time, he met my lovely grandmother, who was a Wheeland, and they were from a publican family. So then we were actually, the Taylor family were actually publicans. And we had behind all our hotels, because each member of the family, if you wanted to have more hotels as we grew, it had to be another licensee with it. But behind it, we had this wine distribution company called South Australian Wine Distributors. And it brought in all the great wines from South Australia, the Clareville Co-op. Down in Coonawarra, we were dealing with the Wind family and also the Seppel family down in McLaren Vale. So we got to see all the great regions, but it really was Big Bill. He had this great vision to set up. He could see it was all fortified back in those days. So our family, when we sold a few of the pubs, we had a nice one in the city. So when we sold the pubs, we decided to go on this venture because he could see from what was happening over in Bordeaux that Australians were starting to appreciate really high quality table wines. So we planted the largest planting of Cabernet Sauvignon in the Southern Hemisphere at the time. It was 400 acres of Cabernet Sauvignon. The Seppel and Wind family said we're crazy to do that. and even the people in the Clear Valley thought it was an outrageous thing to do. And this is in the late 1960s. And the reason was because, as everyone knew back then, you just don't make good fortified wine out of Cabernet Sauvignon. So it really does show how things have changed so much over that period of time.
Amazing, because like you said, Shiraz perhaps would have been a better bet in case the table wine didn't take off. But, you know, your family, it's one of those families where I'm absolutely fascinated, not just by the linkage to wine, but to all these other things. Is it well documented that you've kept kind of all of that history, you know, available for the next generations?
We have, yes. I've been documenting it all about, you know, my ancestors, both from Bega. We even came out on the last convict ship. So I love telling that story to our English customers that my my great grandfather, Peter Taylor, he was on that last convict ship. But I say it was the beauty of Australia. He arrived as a convict in Sydney, but actually he was able to negotiate a deal. If he was prepared to go down to Bega, they would make him a free man. So I love that bit of enterprise that we had from those very early days, and it really is something we love to tell the stories amongst the family about the pioneering spirit of the business, of what our you know, my grandfather and his grandfathers did in this country, and it really excites us to maintain that entrepreneurial pioneering spirit that we have. So hence, you know, two of our top wines that we did plant back then in 69. One, of course, is called the Pioneer Shiraz, that we did do about 40 acres of that. And, of course, the other is the Visionary Cabernet Sauvignon, named after my grandfather.
Just incredible to have, and to anyone born into your family, just so wonderful to have that history that they can read up on and to see where they come from. I think it's such a shame when you know, there's big gaps and you don't know what's happened. So the Taylors essentially pioneers, visionaries, but also, you know, there's a bit of the felon amongst that as well.
Yeah, there certainly is. There's quite a bit in that respect.
So you got just keep an eye on you as well. I'll keep that in mind for later. I'd love to know, you know, if someone's listening out there and they have their own wine brand, what is the secret, or is there a secret to maintaining longevity for a wine brand?
Oh, there definitely is. It's got to be authentic. You know, that you can see, you know, a lot of the supermarkets, they make these artificial brands, you know, that look colourful, and off they go, and they just feel it'll work. And, you know, they even use celebrities to endorse them, and sometimes, you know, that can work. But I think if it's serious about being authentic and about quality, and about heritage and tradition, I think the secret is really to tell the story, but also share the experience of what it takes to make great wine, you know. And it's not as simple as a lot of people think. It really does take a lot of perseverance, a lot of patience, and you've got to be prepared to you know, fail at times, but all the time, as my grandfather and father, you know, in made sure and entrusted in me, was you always learn from those trials and tribulations on that quest to always be making that better wine.
That's for sure. I used to, a long time ago, used to work in retail in my early days. And one of the questions I would ask people that knew more about wine, and in particular customers walking into a store when I was very green, is why do you buy that particular wine? And for wines like Taylor's, I remember people commenting, about consistency and reliability. Is that something that's important and something you think about with your products?
Yes, definitely. I was always drilled in that you're only as good as the worst bottle of wine that you make. So there are no shortcuts here. There's no, trying to get around the corners. So that's really entrusted our style, and it's always been, people look me in the eye, and I really take that compliment that I can see has happened from generations. Not only about the consistency, the reliability. We very, we love the endorsement from awards, not only here in Australia, but around the globe. We really get excited by that. But we probably, rather than just winning a gold medal or an occasional trophy, which are great accolades to have, we really have, from the long list and panel that we do, we like the consistency. In other words, we understand that judging wine is a very subjective pursuit. So we like the fact that consistently the wines come through and are respected for their quality. And the ultimate judges for us, really, while it's nice to have these endorsements from the professionals, it's really the consumers. And we've reflected that in the style we make. We actually make approachable, velvety, silky wines that are full of flavour and that we want to be as flavoursome and as smooth as possible. So, that's why we're prepared to put that extra effort in aging them and making sure we release the wines at the exact right time for the wine.
Tell me a little bit about the Clare Valley. Your family has history all the way back to the 50s out in the Clare. Tell me what makes the Clare Valley special. Because there are so many amazing wine regions in Australia. And even though the Clare isn't that far from, a major city, for some people it's a little bit too far of a drive, which makes no sense to me. But tell me what's so special about the Clare Valley.
Yeah, what's so special about Clare really is the beautiful location. The soil profile is exceptional. In fact, it's the largest amount of Terra Rossa soil, in any region. We've got it through our entire vineyard. It's not just a small strip in another famous wine region that is down in the southeast. We actually have it all there, but also it's a series of valleys. We're 350 metres above sea level. Port Wakefield, we're on the Wakefield River, but Port Wakefield is relatively close, so we have a bit of a maritime influence. But we also have these lovely warm, rich days and cool nights through our whole ripening and vintage period, which really enables us to make, exciting wines from our showcase Rieslings that the region is famous for, but also our reds, particularly our Shirazes and Cabernet Sauvignons. Our Malbecs and Merlots go exceptionally well in the beautiful Terra Rossa soils. And we've been having great international success with experimenting with different clones of Chardonnay. So, as I say, the Clare is, for me, winemaker's heaven. It's got all the right diversity of geography throughout the rich valleys, from the Polish Hill River to Watervale, to the Terra Rossa soils of where we are, to the lovely Mintara slates, and the Skilly Valley. It's just a beautiful, diverse region to explore. And, it just enables us to pick the grapes. I often say the hardest decision a winemaker has to make in the Clare Valley is when to pick the delicious grapes. And you've really got to get that timing right, because you've got a lot of different climatic conditions occurring throughout the valley.
Yeah, it is a special place, and I particularly love the history that the Clare what it means for Australia, and some of the amazing changes that have happened, in particular, something like the screw cap changes that were made. You were integral in kind of changing over your entire range to screw cap. Tell me a little bit about that process and what you believe that does for your wines.
Yeah, that was a great example of the pioneering spirit. I can remember it very clearly when I was at the Clare Valley winemakers meeting, and it was at our local pub, the Rising Sun Hotel in Auburn. And we were all just talking about the problems of cork and the randomness of cork taint and all the leakers and the scalping. And, I can remember saying to the whole team, well, look, I noticed there's some wine companies that are doing some experiments, but what if we get together and try this new technology that had just come out? Our chair at the time was Andrew Hardy, and he'd actually shown me. I got really excited by it when we actually had a longer sleeve for the screw cap to actually look quite classic and blend in with the bottle. Before, screw caps had been like a silver dime on top, and they just looked a bit cheap, like it was on a flag and a wine. But what we wanted to do by having a long sleeve, to have the beauty of the brand identity of our Clare Valley Rieslings, we, as tailors and two other wineries, decided to do 100% of our Rieslings with the 2000 vintage. And I actually can remember talking to Peter Barry about going, don't be 50, Peter, have a go, let's get behind this screw cap initiative. But he was worried by a lot of the wine journalists at the time. And he was also worried by a lot of the sommeliers that might think, gee, this is just not high quality, and they enjoyed, opening the wine with a cork in the restaurant and, sniffing the cork and doing all that theatre that goes with cork. But what actually happened was the sommeliers and the journalists got right behind the Clare Valley initiative when we released our Rieslings for the 2000 vintage, and they actually could see the quality initiative, see that it was better, and it really helped grow it. So everyone then went behind the screw cap going forward. So by marketing it as a marketing cooperative, the Clare Valley winemakers really showed great vision and great pioneering spirit in bringing screw cap, which was an idea that we all had in the Rising Sun Hotel. All of a sudden, that flicker of an idea, it just caught the world, the whole global wine world by storm. And even those old Kiwis across the ditch, they could see the initiative, and they've got that boring Sauvignon Blanc, but they saw it as a good initiative. They're good copying, and all of a sudden we shared the idea with them, which was great. And I didn't mind that because I thought it was good for quality of wine generally around the globe. But some of them had the audacity to start to say that it initiated over in Marlborough, but that was actually about 18 months to 2 years later. But the funny story for us was, I'm really proud that Taylor's then, we became the first winery around the globe to go 100% screw cap across our entire portfolio. And that was in August 2004. And I remember it very clearly because I remember telling my dad that on the success of what happened with the Riesling, we've decided to go 100% across our beautiful Cabernet Sauvignon and Shiraz reds, the entire portfolio. And rather than saying, well done, well, that sounds exciting, I'll never forget my old man, this happens in a family business, saying to me, you're effing what, with all our jewels of what you're doing? He said, I didn't mind when you risked risked it on our Rieslings, but we all know, at Taylor's we only sell a little bit of Riesling, but not our Cabernet Sauvignon. And I just said, look, Bill, trust me, we've already committed to it. We've done some good experiments with it. And, again, we went in there, pioneering the screw cap on our reds. And you know what was the exciting thing? Our sales actually increased because it actually showed us that consumers, with the variability of cork, there was cork taint, but the worst cork taint was the slightly tainted, or the variability that you got with oxidisation and the interreaction and scalping of flavours that the cork was doing on the wine. And all our customers around the globe, the big supermarkets, even the restaurants, everyone was sick of having to return corked wines and do credits. So it really did all of a sudden make not only our distribution far more efficient, it meant that no one actually ever got a bottle of wine from Taylor's anymore that was affected by cork. And the real tragedy that I used to see in some of the best wines that I've had from around the globe is the variability you get. You get really good bottles where the cork does its job, but consistently, from cork from all around the globe, you've always got this variability, the way it ages and the way you do have those problems of cork taint and also scalping the flavours of the wine over a period of time.
Yeah, and we just can't afford these days to be spending money on whether it be a $10 bottle or a $1,000 bottle and not know, the quality outcome of what we're going to have.
Yes, exactly. And it's like, could you imagine if we purchased glass and in every dozen, one or two bottles was leaking. You just can't put up with it. But that was what was happening in the wine industry. And I remember, I often say, I'm fairly bald at the moment, but I used to have a lot of hair. But I can always remember in the early days of one of our award-winning wines, which was from the 98 vintage, which was a superb vintage, but we had faulty cork throughout it all, and we had several suppliers. But I remember I had to do an insurance claim that was across our entire production of what was a brilliant year for us, and that really meant it almost bankrupted the company. But having worked through it all and moved on to the screw cap, it actually enabled us to go forward without that risk, sitting in the back of and the expensive insurance that you need when you insure for your wines to be done under cork.
I mean, it's so nice to hear, because I think for a lot of people, maybe not myself, but, you crack open a bottle these days and don't give so much thought to kind of, the process that you went through, which was absolutely massive. It's so nice to hear it from your mouth. So thank you for telling me about that. You brought up bankruptcy. The Australian wine industry is in a bit of a pickle at the moment. In your time, you've seen, the ebbs and flows of what the wine industry can go through. What are your thoughts on where we're sitting at the moment and what the future will look like?
Yes, a very good point. I must admit, in my nearly 40 years experience in the industry, I've never seen it this dire. And I actually remember as a little guy, in our original 400-acre vineyard, seeing chainsaws go through that, half of it, and see my father fairly close to tears as we were grafting over half of the 400 acres over to white wine varieties. But I'll never forget what he said. I said, Dad, as he was sort of tearing up, I said, what's wrong? Because I was, as a little 6-year-old, I was quite fascinated by the noise of the chainsaws. But he said, don't worry, son, just remember we're not in the wine industry, we're in the fashion industry. And I've told that story to everyone that works in Taylor's Wines, in that you really have to be adaptive to fashion and change, and always be trying to predict what's happening. And so, today it really hurts. It hurts me when I see fruit, throughout the vineyards of Australia, being left on the ground. I see the struggle of the growers. I look at, some of the pressures that we've all been under. But at the same token, I'm not half glass empty sort of person. I'm a half glass full, and I really do see the potential for the Australian wine industry now that we've reopened back into China. It won't fix all our problems, but I think if we really do focus on the high quality end of our business, not the commercialised entry level part, that the big subsidised wine countries of Spain, France and Italy can do so much better than Australia, because Australia, we're the highest taxed wine producing country in the world. So what we really have to concentrate on is our beautiful, cool climate wines and our very best wines that win trophies and awards in international wine competitions up against the best in the world. We've really got to concentrate on those and really get that message out, because really the rest of the world, there are very few countries that really enjoy our best wines. They tend to want our more, our cheaper wines that again, after a while, the supermarkets start to work out that they can probably start to make them themselves. So I do see hope, but there is, hard times ahead. I'm on the board of Wine Australia. We've had to make some tough decisions there with funding the Australian Wine Research Institute. So all businesses are having to make big cuts. I think even our largest corporate winemakers are having to, sell their assets and really look at the structures and how they work. So I think it really is quite a serious time. And I think the big challenge for us as a wine industry, and I look to, my next generation kids, they're very interested in the business. But I think for the young, we've got to really look at ways of recruiting the young wine drinkers and making wine approachable and fun and interesting, and not making it so serious and, full of rules and restrictions. I think wine really has a role to show the culture of the past, but also for the next generation to really, take it on and really get excited by the fact that every time you drink a wine, it's a great pleasure to have with fine company and fine food, and to really understand that it's it's a thinking person's beverage that has been around since Adam and Eve and all the rest. I always say, even Jesus Christ, he's probably the best winemaker I ever knew, because he had that knack of turning water into wine.
And he drank Riesling, didn't he?
Yes, I think so, yes. He certainly gave us that blessing too every year. I always look to the heavens when you're looking at vintage conditions and seeing, the beauty and the diversity that every season is always different, always challenging, but always gives you something special as you get, more knowledge and more in touch with it.
That's for sure. I think it's so interesting when you talked about getting young people or just new generations into wine. Anyone that comes on the podcast, I always try to have a look through a range of wines. I really particularly like to look at kind of the whole offering and not just the pointy end. Often that's the wines that we see in the professional world. And so it was such a delight to go out to my local, and I picked up a Promised Land wine and a Jarraman and had a look at kind of where value lies at that $13, $16 price point. And I was really truly pleasantly surprised at what I got from. I was actually drinking a Cabernet Merlot, and I remember thinking these are the kind of wines I would have picked up and what I could afford when I was in my university days, and it was kind of what got me in. And when you think about drinking a Cabernet Merlot, you want that plummy, and you talked about it, soft and supple and luxurious in style, and it absolutely delivered that for really not a lot of money at all.
Yeah, well, that's the exciting thing, and that's what I always look at is wine is the discovery, and that's it. You're wanting to have a wine that you respect, you like, you can afford, and you can just share the simple experience with it. With great food and friends, and to me that's what it's all about. And when you get more into it, as your palates mature and evolve as ours have, being wine professionals, you realise you're on that continuous life learning journey, which makes it exciting. And that's why at times, I do like other beverages like spirits or cocktails, but I never have to think about them. They're just, a one drink, and that's it. Sometimes the flavours are interesting and refreshing, and that's what you like for the occasion. But the beauty for me with wine is it just accompanies, all the great diversity of great, food that we get to experience, both at home when we're cooking and also when we're, out and about in a lovely hotel or bistro, or even, if you want to be, in a fancy restaurant somewhere.
I think we forget sometimes. I think perhaps when the Olympics come around and we realise, God, we're good at swimming, or we're really good at this particular sport, we get that sense of pride of where we sit on the world map. I think that we've had wine in our lives in Australia for so long, we take it a bit for granted and forget that just how strong we are. And if it was taken away from us, we might just stop and think, holy moly, because we really do produce some of the world's greatest wines. I was going to say, one of the questions I get asked often is like, oh, do you think this bottle of wine's worth it if you're, forking out $200 or $1,000? A lot of people say, have you ever tried that, and is it worth it? And one of my first questions or answers to that is, where do the grapes come from and what story are they telling? And with, I think, the Taylor's offerings, you're very good at telling the story about those vines and perhaps, the legacy that they carry over time. And we can't just go willy-nilly planting new vineyards across Australia. And so it's so important to look after those old vines. Is that something that, you kind of drill into the everyone in your company?
Oh, definitely. We do. We've got to really respect those vines that, we've been so lucky from previous generations to have the vision to plant them. So that they're absolute jewels within our Clare Valley estate. So I love the fact that, my granddad, Big Bill's no longer with me, but I can go and look at the Cabernet Sauvignon, vines, and yeah. Makes me a little emotional, actually, but you can see them still, producing great wine on what he wanted, over 5 decades ago.
Absolutely. And that answers my question completely. Yes. Is those wines worth it? Absolutely. You cannot get that replicated. You can't turn around tomorrow and produce something like that without all this amazing effort that, the people in your family have laid before you. You are part of, like you said earlier, about a few different bodies. Australia's First Family of Wine, the current director, Wine Australia, Drink Association. You're also have a day job. What do you get out of being part of those kind of industry bodies?
Oh, the networking is invaluable. You know, Australia's First Families of Wine, again, is basically a marketing cooperative. So we talk about our old vines and how we, can register them and make sure that they, can live as long as they can. So we share ideas amongst ourselves. When we come together as a group, we actually show the diversity not only of our own regions, which we're all very proud of, but also the great diversity across Australia as a wine nation. And it's been invaluable as we go to key markets and really show how we can laugh at each other, collaborate with each other, and enjoy each other's company while still, working together to make sure that our wines are seen in all the right places around the globe. So yeah, that's been a great help, and that's the great thing. I've always loved when I started off. I came out of the competitive world of finance and stockbroking, where you probably didn't share much with your competitors. But the great thing when I started my first vintages at Taylor's Wines was, if we were ever short of anything, when it came to acid or short of grapes or whatever, everyone would ring up and said, "Can I help?" And we actually had last vintage, and it shows you the strength of the Clare Valley community. We actually had our worst frost ever in the past 50 vintages, and it actually wiped out about 2/3 of our estate vineyard. But all the other Clare Valley winemakers, even though half the valley had been hit by frost, there were still offers of support, friendship, and also support for any of the grapes that we may need, for some of our wines. So, it is terrific to, I feel honoured to be a member of the Australian wine community, and hence, the way it's supported my family over the generations, always wanting to give back a bit, so that the Australian wine industry is in good health going forward, because I think it is an unsung jewel that we have. And, as I said before, we export all around the world. We employ a lot of people through all our rural communities, yet we're the highest taxed wine producing country in the world. So, it can be quite frustrating when you do ask for, some help. And look, to be fair, I think, the current federal government have done an excellent job in repairing the damage with our relationships in China. So that's been a positive. But when you look at all the costs, all the compliance of running a business, plus all the taxation on top of it, at times, it can be very, very, very difficult in the wine industry.
Well, we certainly don't do it for that. I think it's a labour of love in every sense of the word, but it is there for the love. So, Mitchell, I'd love to know, if I was to ask you what you'd be drinking if you could only have 3 drinks, what would they be and why?
Well, that's a great question, and of course, look, for its purity and everything that I've always loved, because I always love this particular time of year, in that, it is warming up, we're rolling into spring, and I love great food, and I love being with family, so there's nothing better than a Clare Valley Riesling. And I'd have to say that now that I'm the current chair of the Clare Valley winemakers and growers. But the other drink too that I've always fascinated as a winemaker, because it really we've done a lot of work on it, and I've been very lucky to make friendships all around the world in the Napa Valley with winemakers, and also in Burgundy, with my dear late friend Louis Latour. But I always love a really an interesting Chardonnay, because Chardonnay has got so much complexity to it. Those nuances. I love great Montrachets, and I also love the Australian version of great Chardonnay. So, we've actually won a few globes with some of the work we've done. So I love that. And then, of course, finally, the wine that I always love with a bit of age. It's the king of grapes. It's the one that started us off as a business, but it is a Cabernet Sauvignon or a Cabernet blend, and whether it comes again from Bordeaux, the Clare Valley, Coonawarra, Margaret River, Napa Valley. I always love the complexity, the length of palate with great Cabernet, and even if it's blended with a little bit of Merlot or Malbec or even Cabernet Franc. Always love the complexity of fine aged Cabernet Sauvignon.
3 amazing varieties, and they will get you right through the day and have you thinking as well. And I love that. Mitchell, it's been really lovely having you on. I probably have a million more questions for you, but they'll have to wait until we're sitting down with the drink in front of us. Thank you for your time today. It's really been an honour.
My pleasure, and always great to share the family's passion of wine with you, and as I say, feel really honoured all the opportunities I've had with my family, but also really looking forward to building on that with the next gen. So thanks for the opportunity to indulge in probably my favourite passion in the world.
You're so very welcome. Cheers to you.
Cheers.
This is Over a Glass. I'm Shanteh Wale. Stay tuned for more stories from the world of wine and drinks. Listen in every Thursday on your podcast app. Follow us on Instagram at overaglasspod and contact us at overaglass@deepintheweeds.com.au.